Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Robert McDowall. We're going to take a look at what's going on politically here on Alderney, in the UK, and the rest of the world. Good to see you.
Hello, Tony.
Robert, let's start off with Alderney. I believe there's a new think tank in operation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Uh, yes, I can. I mean, I'm not the official spokesperson for it, but I can give you a little bit of the background. I was asked to join it, I think, partly because of some technical expertise I have in certain areas, and also because I have quite a lot of data from a long time ago when I was on the States, which might be useful background to to some of the aims and aspirations of the think tank. But I am not their official spokesman. In fact, I don't know who is at the moment. Alistair Forrest is a sort of PR media man.
Yeah.
So if you wish to talk to him afterwards, please do. Yes, what's prompted this is actually the proposed establishment of the Bailiwick Commission,
Yeah.
which I think you've got down as an item to
We have
discuss. So
got it down. Yeah. Hmm.
I'd like to bring that in at this stage. Uh, as you're aware, it has been proposed that a Bailiwick Commission is established under the chairmanship of Sir Bob Neal, a former Conservative MP, but who's someone who has quite a lot of experience in Channel Islands affair. And in fact, I did meet him once or twice during my time on the States. The purpose of the Bailiwick Commission is to reset the financial relationship between Guernsey and Alderney. Now, the mandate, the processes, who will be on the commission is, of course, as yet not known. But ultimately, it's a negotiating exercise. You, and Alderney has to come up with good quality data as to what its current situation is. So it needs profit and loss, balance sheet,
Yeah.
all this sort of good stuff, which is lacking. In order to articulate whatever its concerns and issues are. I would also say correspondingly, the states of Guernsey has to do the same, and candidly, their accounting is
You've always said this. You've always said it.
is not in a wonderful situation. So this particular group is looking to uh, put forward some proposals as to what might be done to establish the proposition
Yeah.
in time for the negotiation. As I say, obviously, we don't know at this stage when the commission will formally be established and so on. Clearly, you've got to have the election of the states members in Guernsey and so on. So it's a few months down the road. But if the comments of the late lamented Lyndon Trott are to be believed, uh, it's something that they would want to get up and running, quote, in the autumn of this year.
Okay. So, a couple of questions. First of all,
Yeah.
does the commission have public witnesses coming in, or how does that work?
And we don't know yet whether it's to what extent it's open to the public, to what extent submissions can be made by the public or other interested parties. Those are part of the issues to be addressed in fine tuning the mandate of the commission.
Okay. Second question: will the findings be um, accepted by both sides? In other words, is this the whole idea? The commissioner will come back with a proposition, and they've both got to accept it.
Yeah. That is the idea. I mean, whether they're legally bound to accept it, again, I think is still up for questioning. But if they don't, I could well see some sour faces from the UK
Mm. Which we're always
because
aware
yeah,
of.
because the UK is getting increasingly irritated with the Crown dependencies, which from many perspectives they regard as tiresome appendages.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not our fault the Normans left us behind, is it?
Well, no, no. Don't get me going on William the Conqueror another time.
I mean,
So,
what does appeal to me as far as this is concerned, and as far as the group's concerned,
Yeah,
unlike GPEG in Guernsey, which is also a think tank, at least
yeah.
we'll have some weight behind this project, which GPEG never have had.
No, no, and I think this will be more focused to the extent that it's prompted by the establishment of the Bailiwick Commission,
Yeah,
and to ensure that Alderney or the representative of Alderney can enter that discussion properly equipped with a full understanding and be able to negotiate. Candidly, I don't think they don't have the data. I don't think they have the capacity to do so at the moment, but that's a personal view.
yeah, but probably quite correct from that point of view. But in terms of the commission, do you think it's just going to look at the financial relationship or governance in general? Because, we saw last year, didn't we, failure of
Yeah,
governance over this question of
yeah,
trying to synchronise the election dates.
yeah. Well, it's prompted clearly by the financial reset, but inevitably governance issues coming will come into that. Although
Yeah,
it isn't focused on governance, but clearly so. And it's such things as how the relationship works, doesn't work, um, the the power, ability, and dare I say, competence of the ordinary representatives in the states of Guernsey. These are kind of important things,
mm,
not just present, but also for the future.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, basically, what we're seeing here is a possible reset of the 1948 agreement.
I think it goes further than that, Tony, because it's not just a question of the costs and so on related to the 1948 agreement, but Guernsey does, rightly or wrongly, expend other costs over and beyond the
Yeah,
1948 agreement as a result of legislation that has been subsequently published. And if you go to, I think David Earl did analysis, was it late last year, early this year,
a very comprehensive
very
analysis. Yeah,
comprehensive. And I mean, he said, well, if you look at purely the services under the 1948 agreement and what they, the deficit is something like 500,000 to 1 million.
yeah.
But of course, there are other services unaudited on top of that, which are provided to Alderney. Now, these haven't been audited, and one may take some issue with the allocation or attribution of some, but there's an additional 7 to 8 million on top of that, which effectively says the cost of running Alderney is 18 million or so.
Yeah, that's right. That's the number that I recall from David's report.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But a lot of that presumably is civil servants' time in Guernsey charged to us.
Exactly. So I think it's not just the 1948 agreement, it's other costs and services that have subsequently been delivered or are being delivered to Alderney post the 1948 agreement.
Yeah. Talking about reliable statistics, as you know, they recently issued a housing memo,
Yes.
and it said that apparently 30%, 36% of the landlords were not resident on the island.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I mean,
Is that
that was
incorrect data, surely?
well. I did look at this some years ago, and actually partly with the assistance of some input from AEL at the time,
Hmm.
because they have some insight. And it was estimated that it was 25 to 28% of the housing were came under that category. So this is a slight increase. Now, times may have changed, I don't know, but it's slightly higher than I expected, to be honest with you.
But there's a difference between being a landlord renting property out commercially
Absolutely.
and being a holiday home owner not renting property out. I
Uh,
think they've
uh,
rolled the two together.
I suspect that may be the case. Yes,
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing they were talking about was, you know, we need more properties. Well, the trouble is, Robert, up to a point, the planning committee has been granting permission to people to build mini mansions.
quite,
Whereas
quite.
really, you need small housing units for starter homes.
Well, I mean, and this will probably put the planning committee into cardiac arrest. But the only way you'll get a substantial amount of affordable housing is by importing prefabricated
Yeah,
housing, and you'd have to allocate an area equal to a small estate, if you like.
yeah.
So there is affordable housing, and that's the only way it'll be done. But I can well I can well imagine the planning committee being faced with that dilemma.
It wouldn't do them any good. I think the cardiac effect would come into it, no doubt about that. But, they really must do something about working for the island in general. And that means housing the population who at the moment are not
Right.
being housed properly. And they were considering modular stuff at Leal's Yard, weren't they, in Guernsey? That fell through.
They, that fell through, and I mean, again, this is purely anecdotal, but I do hear that is going to be quote revived under
Yeah,
the new
yeah.
states of Guernsey, if you believe some of the manifestos of some of the candidates who are
Yeah,
standing.
so there we are. Now, whilst we're still with Alderney, Code of Conduct Commissioner. Now, they missed the boat last year by about a month, but they're now giving it serious thought. Surely that lady that is the commissioner for, I think, is it Jersey and somewhere
Yes,
else?
McCulloch. Yeah, yes.
She's obviously first choice. You don't need to put it out to.
No, no. I think it's absolutely correct. I see it as a rather childish gesture to
Yeah,
maintain a so-called independence.
yeah.
It's childish.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's moving on. You've just completed your first year as chairman of the Journal, which, for everyone's information, is our local paper issued fortnightly. Um,
Yeah.
how's it going on, and how do you see the long-term viability, given the fact that nobody buys newspapers anymore? It's all gone digital.
No, well, I've very mixed views. My remuneration is 3 litres of spirits a year for public for public notification. I have two major issues at the moment. Now the one is that the journal basically it has just under 200 subscribers, and it sells between 650 and perhaps 750 copies per edition. And I've never been able to rationalize why why some sell more than others, but there we are. But the key issue is the the people who operate the journal, they don't want any change at all. They don't want any change at all. Now, this be and they work basically on an expenses basis. They
Yeah,
don't get any material remuneration. And what is going to happen is when the current journalist decides to retire, unless there is some well-meaning person who wants to step in and do it on a expenses only basis, that will be the end of the journal.
yeah,
And I think people need to understand that. I've said this to my colleagues on the journal, and they'd rather duck the issue. But that will be it. And if that were the case, I'd see it being a voluntary liquidation in the sense you give the money back to the shareholders.
mm,
The journal is not the journal has a reasonable level of reserves relative to its expenditure, but that's what would happen. And then one would try to sell off the title and the back catalogue and these sort of things.
yeah,
That to me be the solution. But I'm not getting any. I think my colleagues would choose to ignore that. The other thing that does concern me is I'm the journal has 28 shareholders. There's 10,000 shares, and I think the maximum anyone can hold is 15% of the issue. Now, I am not happy with the lack of communication with the shareholders. And I actually want to express my concerns to the shareholders directly in a letter. And I'm meeting some resistance on that from my colleagues. So I, I'm not very happy on that. Then the other thing that has complicated it is the banks in the Channel Islands are tightening up not just on KYC and this sort of thing, but on governance and so
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
And they're very interested in these sort of things. And at the end of the day, they could say, well, we don't want your business any longer because your governance is extremely poor. So these are issues that are hovering around, and it's been a. I'm not particularly happy, to be honest
Okay.
with you, Ted.
But looking at it, Robert, the directors of any company have an obligation as fiduciaries to the
Of course they
shareholders,
do.
don't they?
Of course they do. Of course they do. Of course they do. And that's the point I've made. And and while I'm still a director, I will push that
Mm,
forward because
mm.
otherwise it'll come back on me.
Yeah, well, that's right. Absolutely, as chairman. So there we
Yeah,
are. So let's watch this space. Let's get on to
exactly.
Aurigny. That's always good for, well, I mustn't say good for a laugh because, I mean, it is just absolutely well.
Right.
I see the big Titan Airways Airbus A320 was down there the other day again. Somebody
Yes,
told me that, to hire it for the day is thousands of pounds.
huge
I
amount.
just don't, I just don't see where the company's going.
I don't either. I mean, they're playing around with what I call ripping wheezes, trips to Porto and
Yeah.
other far-flung places, and also they proudly announced this tie-up with British Airways.
Yes.
Well, but it's only through London City Airport.
Yeah.
That's
So
all.
so how do they helicopter you from London City to Heathrow or Gatwick, or do you have
Uh,
to get on the underground?
I haven't inquired. I haven't inquired.
But
Oh,
I
well,
mean,
it may be. It may be. I don't know whether British Airways flies from London City, but it may be that you can only connect through London City. But I've not gone to the effort of inquiring, to be honest
no,
with
no,
you,
no.
Tony.
Neither have I. But I think London City tends to cater for nearby capitals, Paris, Brussels,
Exactly,
Amsterdam, this
exactly.
sort of thing, and not necessarily. Well, I'm sure they don't do any long hauls out of there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, but I mean,
And I mean, sorry to get back to boring issues like accounting and financial reporting, but it's only when Guernsey adopts international public sector accounting standards that the full liability
yeah.
of Aurigny on the balance sheet will be displayed. But until then, you know, it will stagger on and presumably continue to cost the states more. I would hope that after this election, Mr. Roffey has ridden off into the political sunset. I understand,
Yes.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he's the politician chairing the state's trading board. But I would hope there'll be a little more sanity and realism about Aurigny and what to do with it after that. I can only pray.
We both know that states of anywhere, governments owning airlines doesn't work.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, and
And and it may take even further larger deficit issues to bring the states of Guernsey to that reality.
mm, mm, mm. There you go. Right, the Guernsey election. Heidi Salisbury, a lady I've got a lot of respect for, who isn't standing, said that she wasn't happy with the blanket approach and that to actually it was impossible to canvass voters on the system of an island-wide franchise.
I mean, of course, she's right. She's
Mm,
right. There's only so much sort of foot leather, if you like, you can exhaust, and so many people you can see. But rightly or wrongly, the states of Guernsey did decide to move to island-wide voting in, was it 2020? If they want to change it, fine, but it doesn't. It doesn't hold their consistency up
No,
very
I
well.
suppose that's the problem. Although they could argue as a new states that they're, trying to sort of reform the system. But we were both aware of the Guernsey Press podcasts. There were about
Yes.
60 of these half-hour interviews. Well, who is going to sit down and watch, 60 half-hour interviews? 30 hours, that's a day and a bit to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the manifestos over.
Well, I mean, I'm a rather sad. As you know, I've had a hip operation recently, so I have a little more time on my hands, and
Yes.
I've dipped into some 25 or 30 of these. Um, and I make the sort of following conclusions. I mean, most of them are good, well-meaning people.
Yeah,
Let me
sure.
be honest.
Not doubting that.
Um, uh, uh, some are a bit too much one club players. Someone wants to be a human affairs minister.
Oh, well, that's, not to be
Uh,
recommended.
no, but what? And there was interesting enough of the 30 or so I've dipped into. There's been no mention of the relationship with Alderney. Well,
Hmm.
perhaps why should there be, since they're
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I
uh,
suppose if you want to be elected, that's one thing you don't mention.
yeah, yes, it probably is actually.
Yeah.
But the other thing that does dismay is their 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 insularity. Uh, they seem to be oblivious to the major issues that are going on outside of the bailiwick of Guernsey.
Yeah.
Quite quite astounding. No mention of it at all. It's almost as if they're in a parallel universe, and this is right across those standing with their different views and perspectives, and that really disappoints me that they're very insular.
It sometimes reminds me of some of these local papers in American towns, not the big cities.
You know,
And World War Three is about to break out, and they're worried about the price of wheat on the front page.
Exactly right. And so from their from their podcast, it reminds me more of an election to a borough council
Mm.
than
Or even a
anything
parish
more than that,
council.
or even parish council in
Yeah,
some cases.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but and that's the most disappointing thing. But I think there's 83 people, 82, 83 standing for 38 seats, down on last time. And so, almost every 1 in 2 will get elected.
But if you were going there as a voter, presumably you get a couple of big sheets of paper and you tick those, yeah?
Well, that's right. You get in
You
front of
just
you,
get
and
fed up after the first 10.
yes, I mean, whether you vote for the first 5 or 10, or whether you
Yeah,
meticulously go through 38, I guess depends on how much time you have on your hands.
absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Anyway,
It's,
let's conclude on Guernsey by reminding ourselves of Lyndon Trott's final words. If Guernsey goes down here, Alderney will be pulled down with them.
well, yes, I mean, I think he's making the point, and whether he's right or wrong is that at the current run rate, Guernsey runs out of reserves about 2032, and first of all, there will be more resistance to paying for these transferred and other services. That's point one, and secondly, he's saying that if Guernsey goes down, Alderney won't be able to stand by itself anyway.
Well, that is true, of course.
Yeah,
We
yeah, well, it
accept that,
is,
but
and it comes
but
back to
there's
my
a
view.
simple way out of it. Collect some
Yeah,
tax. I
well,
mean,
well,
God knows how much is outstanding. And
well,
and sorry,
no, but you're absolutely right, and I tell you a little anecdote of me. I'm treasurer of the church, you may know, and we claim money under gift aid, just
yeah.
about £5,000. So I diligently put this in February or March. Received it. I send an email to the new. They split the tax into two. You've got a policy person, and now you've got the front end servicing
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
And he says, we're not making any repayments at the moment because we're upgrading our systems.
But you know my views about the deficit. It's
Yeah,
easy. You push the
exactly.
income tax allowance up to 20,000 per person,
Precisely.
or
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah,
even a little bit more. So that
yeah.
doesn't hit people that are on really low incomes.
Right.
And you put the tax rate up to 22%, and you've
Yeah.
already got the machinery to do it. It's called the
Precisely.
EGI.
Exactly right. I mean, the GST, as I think we've said before, is
Mm.
it's not going. Even if the new states vote, it isn't going to be in by 2027. That's fantasy. It's going to be more like 2029 or 2030. And as I think I pointed out to you, Tony,
Yeah.
um, there's another complexity because Jersey has just decided that it's going to give refunds to visitors under certain criteria. Well, those sort of nuances will have to go in as well.
Yeah.
And and the other point is having canned the contract with Agulysys in terms of general upgrade of systems, the states of Guernsey is going to go to a number of vendors. That isn't going to be a seamless transition, and it means that implementation of GST, if it does take place, to me is well into 2030 or even 2031 after
Yeah,
the
I can
next.
say I can agree with you on that. Definitely,
But,
definitely.
but that's just my personal view.
Let's get on to the UK local elections a few weeks
Yes.
ago. Were you surprised?
Um, no, I wasn't. I wasn't entirely. Obviously reform. Uh, they did perform more strongly than I expected. Um, and I just wonder whether the debacles that came in terms of the resignation of the chairman and then him coming back in another capacity have had any impact. It does sound a warning that I regard reform as a movement.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
probably right there. Because it attracts
and
both sides. It attracts both sides.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and and the movement is driven by its prophet Nigel Farage,
Yep.
and I don't think Nigel Farage is immortal, but
No.
if and when he goes, it doesn't have the structure of a party.
No. But
So
equally, you can say that about the Labour government in terms of the fact that most of the people hadn't had a proper job when they got elected as
it,
MPs.
it, it,
And you could say
exactly,
that about the Conservative government in terms of the incompetence. So,
absolutely. So obviously it struck a very raw nerve with the government, and they're desperately trying to do
I,
things now
I,
to
I sit back here chuckling, quite honestly,
yes,
because they are absolutely scared out of their wits.
they are.
Both the major parties, I think, in terms of looking at their poll results at the moment and looking at reforms.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
well, time will tell on that. But there we are.
Time will.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's all going to be better to tomorrow following Rachel Reeves' budget, or rather her autumn summer statement.
With some follow-up tax changes in the autumn, but we can discuss those another time,
No, she
Tony.
didn't say anything about that, did
No,
she?
no, no, but
We're
perish for
gonna
thought.
we're gonna build four new subs. Rolls-Royce is going to provide modular nuclear reactors. That's good
Yes,
news, I think.
yes, yes.
But I'll tell you what really hit me the other day, and that was the cost of immigration. In other words, the hotels, etc., etc., is equal to the total tax take of Manchester.
It's
That's shocking.
it's enormous, and whatever the merits of there is more public discontent now on immigration issues than ever has been, and it's going to continue to foment.
Mm.
Uh, I mean, I remember a man 50 odd years ago talking about the Tiber flowing with much blood. Um,
Initials um, EP.
EP, and we are getting some manifestations of that,
I'm
and they
afraid
will
so.
continue.
Yeah, yeah,
They will
yeah.
continue. I'm afraid.
And I mean, it's basically the lack of interest on the government, both Conservative and Labour, in terms of trying to control it. I mean, we're seeing these riots in Northern Ireland at the moment,
Yep.
and
Yep.
apparently the man involved in the men involved in the alleged rapes were
Yeah.
Romanians.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, these sort of things inevitably foment discontent,
Yeah,
and it will continue. It will
yeah,
continue until there is uh, visible evidence of reduction in immigration and the costs that go with it.
yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Chinese embassy being built adjacent to the City of London. That's a good idea, isn't it? We'll have to speak to Michael Monelli about that one.
Well, exactly. Look, I mean, presumably the Chinese embassy's got planning permission on these sort of niceties. I would assume the government, if they had some concerns, would voice them. Now, you know, I mean, King Donald Trump is not very happy about it, but you know, I don't think the UK is yet the 51st state.
No, Canada's the 51st. We'll be the 52nd.
Right, 52nd. But yeah, I mean, look, it'll go ahead, and you know, you have to you have to take whatever precautions you can to ensure that they don't use that location for nefarious activities.
The problem is it's not like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, where
Yeah.
you got the communists on the one side and us on the other side.
It,
It's far more complicated these days,
it,
particularly with trade and stuff like that.
yes, I mean, yeah, we're living in an increasingly fragmented world, you know, politically, economically, and socially,
Yeah,
and you have to take a far more segmented approach
yeah.
to these things.
Mm. I think social media gives us too much information on occasions.
Well,
Um, Trump being a good example.
quite. I mean, you know, I mean, I far be it from me to go about Donald Trump, but it's like a spectating the court of a medieval king
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
with his sycophantic courtiers around
And
him.
he's on the throne, and Peter Mandelson standing behind him.
It, 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 exactly. It's a bizarre experience, and you know, I've taken to tuning into Newsnight if I'm at home 10:30, and you know, most evenings there's an update on Trump and what he's doing because he normally does the Oval Office
Yeah.
broadcast or whatever about 6 o'clock in the evening at that time, and yeah, it's yeah, another edict from the court of King Donald.
What do you think about the tariffs? I hear that the federal court has found in his favour.
Yeah, yeah, yes, that's right, and you have to. I, I mean, the Supreme Court is obviously more conservative than
Yeah.
liberal now. Um, I, I think ultimately there is going to be a clash between King Donald and the Supreme Court. It won't help the US's reputation, and it will also, I think, ultimately destroy Donald Trump,
Mm.
and unless beforehand he goes the way of the president he most admires, President McKinley, who unfortunately was assassinated.
What about Tricky Dick?
Richard Nixon's like a maiden aunt compared with Donald Trump.
But he's got problems with immigration. We're seeing that in LA at the moment.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. No, he's got similar but larger problems, and he he's he he he's taking a very big hammer to it, and that's clearly going to cause more tension between himself and the individual states
yeah, yeah.
where he's focusing on the immigration.
And Elon Musk now regrets what he said in his tweets.
Well,
A bit
I mean,
late, I would have thought.
I think Elon Musk has got hormone problems, but
Yeah, yeah.
That's just a
Certainly putting the two together,
it's
it's.
it's it's yeah, King Kong versus Godzilla.
What about Chagos? Was that a good idea?
Uh, well, I think you're not going to win either way. I mean, as it basically the US wants to fight these battles in the Far East.
Mm,
I don't think the UK should join them on that at all. And I would make the US pay more
mm.
for the deal. Frankly, I mean, Asia Pacific is remote from for UK now. I think its defense and security issues have to be focused on Europe, frankly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't have to defend Singapore in the way that
No,
we would have done all
no,
those years ago.
exactly,
But
exactly.
it seems to me ludicrous that you give something back and then pay rent to the
Well,
amount that they're paying.
exactly. No, no, it's bizarre. If I could quote Neville Chamberlain, "A land of which I know little and care even less."
Without the infamous piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Without the infamous piece of paper, exactly, Tony.
We've run out of time. As ever, I
Um,
really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again, in a few months'
yeah,
time,
yeah,
for further updates on what we do to stop the world doing whatever
exactly.
it's doing.
Okay.
Thanks, Robert.
Many,
All
many
the
thanks
best.
indeed, Tony. Take
Cheers.
care.
Bye.